The cafe on Maple Street always smelled like roasted coffee and quiet money. The kind of place where no one looked at prices because they didn't have to. Soft jazz drifted from hidden speakers, mixing with low laughter and the delicate clink of porcelain cups. Outside, snowmelt slid down the windows in thin, dirty lines. That was when the door opened. Cold air rushed in first, sharp and unwelcome. Then the girl stepped inside. She was small. Too small for the oversized jacket hanging from her shoulders like it belonged to someone else. The fabric was worn thin at the elbows, darkened by weeks of grime and melted snow. Her shoes squelched softly against the polished floor, and several heads turned at once. A woman near the counter paused mid-sip, her lips tightening. "Seriously," she whispered. The girl stood frozen just inside the doorway, as if afraid the floor might swallow her whole. Her fingers clutched the strap of an old violin case slung across her back. The case was battered, its corners cracked and held together with yellowing tape. A faint crack ran across its surface like a scar. She cleared her throat. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely louder than the hum of the espresso machine. "I don't want to cause trouble." The manager noticed her then. His smile dropped instantly. "We're full," he said flatly, even though half the tables were empty. "I know," she replied quickly. I was wondering." Her words tangled, then finally fell free. "Can I play for food?" For a heartbeat, the cafe was silent. Then someone laughed. "Did she say play?" A man snorted from a corner table. "This isn't a charity," another voice added. The girl's cheeks flushed crimson. She nodded, as if she had expected this all along. "I won't beg," she said softly. "Just one song. If you don't like it, I'll leave. I promise." The manager sighed loudly, rubbing his forehead. He glanced around, worried more about appearances than cruelty. "1 minute," he said. "Then you're gone." She bowed her head in gratitude so deep it hurt to watch. Slowly, carefully, she slid the violin case from her back and set it on the floor. The clasps creaked as she opened it. Inside lay an old violin, scratched and dulled by time, its wood-worn smooth where small hands had held it again and again. She lifted it like something sacred. As she raised the bow, her hands trembled, not from fear, but from hunger. Around her, people leaned back in their chairs, already bored, already certain. A homeless girl, a broken violin, nothing worth hearing. Then the bow touched the strings. And everything began to change. The sound that came from the violin didn't belong in that cafe. It wasn't polished or pretty in the way people expected music to be. It was honest. The first note hung in the air, thin and trembling, like someone standing alone in the cold calling for help. A woman near the counter frowned, then stilled. Her spoon slipped from her fingers and clinked against the saucer. No one laughed now. The girl closed her eyes. As the bow moved again, the melody unfolded, slow, aching, deliberate. Each note seemed to carry weight, as if it had traveled a long distance to be heard. The music spoke of empty streets and nights spent counting stars instead of sleeping. Of holding on to warmth that wasn't there anymore. The cafe changed. The low chatter dissolved. Even the espresso machine hissed itself quiet, as if unwilling to interrupt. People who had been scrolling on their phones lowered them without realizing it. The man who had laughed earlier shifted in his seat. His grin faded, replaced by confusion. He swallowed hard. The girl's fingers moved with careful precision, pressing the strings as if they might disappear if she touched them too harshly. This wasn't a performance meant to impress. It was survival shaped into sound. The melody grew stronger, rising and falling like breath after a long run. There was sadness in it, deep, unmistakable sadness, but woven through was something else. Hope. A woman by the window felt tears blur her vision. She didn't wipe them away. She couldn't. The music had reached somewhere inside her she thought had gone numb. "That song," she whispered, her voice shaking. "My daughter used to hum it." The girl didn't hear her. She was somewhere else now. The bow sped up, the notes tumbling together, urgent and alive. The violin cried and laughed at the same time, telling a story of loss that refused to be the ending. One by one, hearts cracked open. A man clenched his jaw, blinking furiously. An elderly couple reached for each other's hands without looking. Even the manager, standing rigid near the counter, felt his throat tighten. Then the music softened. The final notes drifted gently, like snow settling after a storm. When the bow finally lifted, silence rushed in, heavy, sacred, undeniable. No one moved. No one clapped. The girl lowered the violin, her lashes wet. She wiped her cheek quickly with her sleeve, ashamed of the tear that escaped. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "I know it wasn't very good." She bent to close the case. A chair scraped loudly. "Wait," the woman by the window said, standing, tears streaming freely now. "Please don't go." The girl froze. "That was my child's favorite song," the woman whispered. "She died last winter." The girl's hands stilled on the clasps. "I used to play it for my little brother," she said quietly. "Before he got sick." The cafe wasn't just listening anymore. It was crying. No one spoke for a long moment. The cafe felt different now, smaller somehow, as if the walls had leaned in to listen. The girl still knelt beside her violin case, fingers resting on the worn clasps, unsure whether she was allowed to breathe again. The manager was the first to move. He cleared his throat, but the sound broke halfway through. "Please," he said, more gently than he had spoken all day. "You don't have to go." The girl looked up, cautious. Years of being chased away had taught her not to trust kindness too quickly. "There's a chair here," he added, pulling one out. "Sit, if you want." Slowly, she rose and perched on the edge of the chair, keeping her violin close, like it might be taken from her if she wasn't careful. A server appeared with a bowl of hot soup. Steam curled upward, carrying the scent of herbs and warmth. Then another plate. Bread. A sandwich cut neatly in half. Someone slid a glass of water toward her. "For you," the server said softly. The girl stared at the food, her lips parting in disbelief. "I can eat it?" she asked. The manager nodded. "No conditions." Her hands shook as she lifted the spoon. The first taste made her eyes close. She chewed slowly, carefully, as if afraid the moment might end if she rushed it. Around her, people shifted uncomfortably. Wallets appeared on tables. Bills were folded, unfolded, then folded again. This wasn't charity now. It was apology. An elderly man spoke from the corner. "I used to play violin," he said quietly. "Many years ago." The girl looked up, surprised. "Really?" He nodded. "I stopped when life got loud. Jobs, bills, excuses. My mother taught me," the girl said. "She said music helps you remember who you are, when everything else is gone." A woman knelt beside her, the same one who had laughed earlier. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks. "Why were you out there alone?" she asked. The girl swallowed. "My mom worked 3 jobs. Still couldn't pay for her medicine. When she passed, my brother and I stayed with neighbors. Then he got sick too." The cafe held its breath. "I promised him I'd keep playing," she continued. "He said when I play, it doesn't hurt so much." Someone covered their mouth. "Why didn't you ask for help?" the woman whispered. The girl hesitated, then said the words that cut deeper than any accusation. "People don't listen when you're dirty." The manager turned away, wiping his eyes. He disappeared into the back and returned with an envelope in his hand. "There's a music school nearby," he said. "I know the director. Scholarships, lessons, a warm place." The girl's eyes widened. "You mean, really?" He nodded. "Really." For the first time that day, she smiled. And no one in the cafe would ever see a homeless child the same way again. Spring arrived quietly on Maple Street. The snow disappeared, replaced by sunlight that spilled through the cafe windows, warm and forgiving. The same tables stood in the same places, the same cups clinked softly, but everything else felt changed. A small sign rested near the counter. "Live music, this afternoon." The cafe was full. People filled every chair, some standing along the walls. A few held tissues in their hands without quite knowing why. They all remembered the girl. They remembered the day sound turned into truth. When she stepped forward, the room went still. She looked different now. Clean dress, hair neatly braided, her violin polished until it caught the light. But her eyes were the same, deep, careful, and carrying more life than most adults ever would. The manager stood near the back, hands folded, heart pounding harder than it should. He remembered the way he had almost sent her into the cold. Almost. She raised the violin to her chin. This time, when she played, the notes didn't ache. They bloomed. The melody danced, bright and sure, filling the cafe with warmth. It spoke of second chances and open doors. Of hands that finally reached back. People smiled through tears. A couple held each other. The woman by the window closed her eyes, breathing slowly, remembering her daughter, but without the sharp edge of pain. When the final note faded, applause broke out, loud, honest, unstoppable. The girl lowered her violin, overwhelmed. She bowed, cheeks flushed, eyes shining. Afterward, the manager approached her. "You know," he said quietly, "I almost didn't let you play that day." She nodded. "Most people don't." He swallowed. "I won't make that mistake again." She smiled. A small, forgiving smile. Before she left, she paused at the door and looked back at the room full of people who were listening now. "Thank you," she said, "for hearing me." Outside, sunlight warmed the street where she had once stood hungry and invisible. Inside, the manager removed the sign "No Soliciting" from the window and set it in the trash. Because some things aren't solicitation. Some things are survival, and sometimes, all it takes to change everything is one person willing to listen.